Speaking of that, though, there's like, I guess this is a mini rant that I would like to go on here to close the podcast. And I'm not attacking J.E. Skeets, all the guys from No Dunks Inc. They're really funny. But he had tweeted that good question from Ben Golliver's NBA Post-Up newsletter. Ben Golliver's at the Washington Post for anyone who's wondering. Will a Josh Giddey breakthrough enable Sam Presti to sell high on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander like the Spurs did with DeJounte Murray? I quote tweeted this, and I'm not calling out J.E. Skeets. So many people think in these terms. He was also noting something that was asked within Ben Golliver's newsletter. I said, 24-year-old Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he just turned 24, is the Thunder's timeline, in my humble opinion. That's where I'm at. I'm not going to, I know we all have a tendency to over-romanticize draft picks. There comes a point, though, and I don't think OKC has done a bad job with its rebuild. It's those picks that they have, their own picks, notably, are turning into real talent. But we just saw them make a consolidation trade for Ousmane Dieng. They have Josh Giddey. If he has a breakthrough, you know what that does? It ups the value of having Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Chet Holmgren. It means you're closer to winning now. And if you have a Josh Giddey breakthrough, and just looking at it through trade terms, you're going to be more likely to trade Josh Giddey to me than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It's very rare that, I know he hasn't made an All-NBA team or an All-Star team. He's an All-NBA type of scorer and creator, and there's more to see from him on defense. I think he's going to have a better year, something similar to his first season with the Clippers. There's more structure and rhyme and reason to how the Thunder's roster is built right now, and it doesn't feel like, assuming there aren't as many injuries, that their season won't be as disrupted as many times by different rotational changes. Again, I mentioned injuries, and then if there's any agendas toward the end of the year to increase the value of their draft pick, you don't move a 24-year-old Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's entering the first year of his 5-year extension. You keep this player. And it's just kind of gross how we view some of these smaller markets, because if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was in New York or Los Angeles, we wouldn't consider them a farm system for trading them to other teams. Like, Oklahoma City should want to keep Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He is right now their best path of having the best player on a contender. Could it be Chet Holmgren? Sure. Could it be Josh Giddey? I'm a little bit more skeptical there. But when you look at Chet Holmgren and Josh Giddey, the future picks the Thunder have, I don't know how the argument isn't. And I know Sam Presti doesn't work this way, even though we saw them give up 3 conditional firsts for Ousmane Dieng at number 11. He's not looking to make a consolidation trade. My gut right now, and I'm not even going to say educated guesstimate, because I feel like most people have no idea what the hell is happening in Oklahoma City. They play everything close to the vest. I don't hear things from people who are hearing things from people who are hearing things from other people who are actually plugged in. That organization is just so tightly wound, I guess, and it can be a problem when it comes to media access. But I'm digressing here. I would argue that it's way more likely, not just minimally or a little bit, it's way more likely the Thunder make a consolidation trade for another star than it is that they trade Shai Gilgeous-Alexander within the next 2 years. Like, if we get to a point where it's 3 years down the line, you're thinking about his upcoming free agency in 2 years, anything's on the table. And I'm prepared to be wrong here. I will probably criticize the Thunder accordingly if they did trade Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander said he wanted to, go back and read the comments from his exit interview. Go back and watch that video. He said he wanted to be in OKC. He said he talked with Sam Presti about the direction of this franchise and that he's excited. It went beyond just sort of this typical cliche hand wringing. There has been no evidence that the Thunder don't want Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, because, hey, not only have they not openly shopped him, no player's untouchable. If there's a rumor that team X called and offered X picks for Shai, that's not necessarily the Thunder calling. If there's a rumor they called in the 2021 draft and offered the first overall Shai Gilgeous to Detroit for the first overall pick, it's just different. No, there are only a handful of players in this league who are actually untouchable. One of them might be one of them is Bradley Beal, because he has a no trade clause for some reason in Washington. Sorry for that tangent right there. But the Thunder paid him. They gave him a 5-year extension. You would have heard more aggressive rumors in advance of that, or even after he signed it leading into this offseason where he counted as a larger cap hit, that they were open to moving him. And if we're talking about the Spurs going down that road with DeJounte Murray as sort of the comparison, it's just different. They gave DeJounte Murray more time there. And that wasn't a decision. It was a decision that was made basically when he was extension eligible. And it, one, seemed like they were stuck in the middle, and two, that DeJounte Murray wasn't going to sign an extension, and they didn't want to pay him near max or max money once he hit free agency in 2024, I think is when he's slated to hit. Yes, 2024. This is so different because Shai is not extension eligible. He's only just beginning his extension. They've also already given him max money. DeJounte wasn't even on a max rookie extension. That's part of why he didn't want to extend, is he stood to make way more money by waiting until free agency. And then with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, there have been injuries. He's been shut down. I would argue if you had given him a full season, especially in 2020, 2021, I think he would have generated just more buzz leading into the All-NBA discussion. I'm not saying he would have made a team. I don't even remember who made those teams at the guard positions offhand. It's a bloodbath when it comes to that. But this is someone who's an All-NBA type of player. I've never viewed DeJounte Murray as that. That could be his absolute ceiling, his 99th percentile outcome. That is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's like 80th percentile outcome to me. His 99th percentile outcome is that dude's a top 10 player in the league, top 5 player in the league. And I'm not trying to be over complimentary here. I think there are a bunch of players who have the talent and have shown enough to where you can put them in that discussion. I never viewed DeJounte Murray. Let me walk it back a bit by saying, hey, I think he's kind of a top 15 player in the league. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander can be that player. That's literally everything any rebuilding franchise is after. The fact that he only just turned 24, he's under contract forever. We don't need to start thinking about the Thunder's next move to get rid of him, especially when everything just seems so copacetic. Not just the signs that they paid him, that they haven't openly shopped in. He has said all these positive things about being in OKC. He has a great relationship with a ton of people on the team, including Alexei Pokusevsky, who he said was the toughest player to guard in the NBA. We don't have to do this. Shai, until proven otherwise, is the Thunder's timeline. And by the way, they're not stuck in the middle the way San Antonio was. They've either shown a willingness to shut down their players and be bad enough to increase the value of their draft pick. Troll them as you want. The Spurs, they weren't willing to do that as egregiously. So they were more so in the middle. The Thunder have bottomed out. And if they do that again this season, it'll be a little bit irritating, but I'm willing to give them just another year because Chet Holmgren is still so young. I really don't know what's going to become of Josh Giddey as a scorer. But like, why can't we start thinking about, and some Thunder fans have gotten mad at me when I've said they should be in on, kick the tires on Donovan Mitchell to pair him with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Chet Holmgren. I'm not saying that's what they have to do, and I think it's not what they are planning on doing. Sam Presti's been not open about that. It's just not the way he operates. My whole thing is, why can't we start thinking about these teams that have the basis for something really special with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? Why can't we start talking about them in the terms of, well, what if they just make a consolidation trade now or over the next couple of years to elevate their position with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander rather than trading Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? I just don't get why we have to think in those terms. I'm not telling anyone how to fan here. Everyone who listens to this podcast knows I'm a stickler against that. I love transactions. I love trades. I love watching basketball. I love reading about it, listening to it. I love so many different parts about this league. I also dislike certain parts about this. When I talk about detrimental coverage, though, or thinking, viewing smaller market teams as farm systems for bigger market squads or just other squads around the NBA, assuming that they can't get to a point where they can win with these players, it's detrimental because even if it was true, you don't want to suggest that there are only teams in 7 to 10 markets in the league that can win a championship. So that's just my little rant here. Until the Thunder show otherwise, and then we can debate this, but until it's shown otherwise, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the Thunder timeline. He's the single most important player to that franchise, especially because we don't really know what Josh Giddey and Chet Holmgren are still going to be at this level. We know what Shai can do at this level. And yeah, if they were rebuilding and they are rebuilding, but if this was hey, he's turning 30 or he's over 30 situation, then we could talk. It's not. He just turned 24. This is a core that I think is going to be together for the foreseeable future, unless the Thunder sees an opportunity to acquire a big name star who's under contract for the foreseeable future to join Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That is the player that I'm still viewing the Thunder's future through. It is him. And I don't even think that this isn't just a Thunder issue, but it's just a larger symptom of, I think, of how we view certain markets or certain teams. Troll the Thunder for the way they've gone about rebuilding. I think there are legitimate criticisms to be had there, but I'm just against assuming this franchise, when they haven't operated in that vein, is going to get rid of a young star / could be megastar who's under contract. That would be something worth critiquing when it actually happens. They haven't done that. And I think bringing up the James Harden situation from 2012, that was a decade ago, guys. Let's let it die. It was a huge what if scenario. It was a decade ago. And the organization thinks in different terms. We've seen them take some bigger risks since then. Look at the Paul George trade. Even look at the Carmelo Anthony trade. But look at the Chris Paul trade. They got a ton of value for him on both ends of that deal. Though my point is just, we're not even at that point. They didn't pay James Harden coming out of his rookie extension because, for a litany of reasons, they've already paid Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and there was no one. There were players too. And some people believed 3 when you looked at Serge Ibaka. 2 players who were better than James Harden on the Thunder at that time. There's nobody on the Thunder better than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander right now. And there's a chance that there may be, only 10 to 19 players better than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander next season.